Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. I also seek leave to respond to the statement by the Leader of the Government in the Senate. As Leader of the Nationals in this place, we'd like to associate ourselves with the comments of Minister Cormann and the great work that the federal government has been doing to actually stand out worldwide in our response to COVID. And I also wanted to briefly remark on rural and regional Australia's commitment to pushing back against the pandemic and getting the national economy back on track. We're proud of our government and the nation, how we've pulled together and literally stunned the world in our response through our joint efforts at a state and national level. Rural and regional Australians are ready to lead our national economic recovery. And as we all know, life has been tough out in the regions for many seasons now: droughts, fires, floods and now a medical crisis. These challenges might have shaken us, but regional Australia is standing strong. We'll be open for business as soon as health circumstances and premiers allow. Mr President, as you are aware, the Nationals are working with our rural and regional communities to do everything we can to not only help those affected get through, but to get back to normal as quickly as possible. We've worked hard to ensure supply chains were kept open, and in doing so keep our country's supermarket shelves stocked with fresh fruit, vegetables and meat. We've made sure our truckies remained on the road, moving produce from its source to manufacturer to consumer. We've backed our mining sector to sustain our national economy now and into the future. We are safeguarding our air freight capacity, working hard with industry to re-establish supply chains. And the Nationals in government are focused on ensuring our regional air services are better equipped to support the return of visitors, business opportunities and freight movement. The Remote Airstrip Upgrade program will improve aerodromes in remote areas. It will upgrade the safety and accessibility of aerodromes in remote areas to improve the delivery of essential goods and services. It will make sure they're accessible in all conditions. Over this period, we've also invested in agricultural shows right across the country. I think one of the aspects of COVID isolation life has been missing opportunities for communities to come together and to celebrate what they do well. We want to make sure regional shows stay relevant and vibrant. And just last week I had the opportunity to head up and thank volunteers in Corryong in the northeast, in the Upper Murray, who had been struggling with bushfires through January, and then COVID-19 shutting down any hope of a quick recovery post-bushfires. This is the home of the Man for Snowy River, and for them to have to cancel that event has had a significant dampener on that community. But they were absolutely stoked that the federal government had not forgotten them, and I'm confident once this pandemic passes that the Corryong community again will stage great events and shows and will welcome people from capital cities to celebrate rural and regional life in our communities. Our farmers have not clocked off because of COVID-19. They've tended stock, ensured crops are planted and harvested and supplies are accessible. Our 85,000 agricultural businesses are ready to go because they haven't stopped, whilst other aspects of the economies have. The Nationals represent workers and families on rural and remote properties, and we played a crucial role in securing visa changes and flexibility to remove the uncertainty around worker availability for our growers during this health and economic crisis. But that is work that will continue through the recovery phase. We remain committed to growing our agricultural sector, and it's because it's hard to reach that $100 billion set by industry by 2030, despite the challenges. We've seen ag fall down to $58.9 billion in 17-18, but it's more important than ever as Australia emerges from hibernation. If we want to see a strong and prosperous Australia post-COVID-19, then we need a vibrant, dynamic and prosperous agriculture sector as well. Our produce is there, way more than we need, and as the world awakens, they too will need fresh food, fibre. Regional Australia stands ready to deliver. Our barley growers, for example, producers operate in a competitive global market and price their products in an entirely commercial way. And I'm sure beer drinkers around the world can attest to how the malting quality of Australian barley. We also stand ready to supply the world's markets, and on July the 5th we see the Indonesian Free Trade Agreement come into effect. That will mean more export opportunities and significant benefits for Australian farmers as well as businesses and investors. As the Minister for Trade has said, it's the most comprehensive bilateral trade agreement Indonesia has ever seen, and it will give competitive edge to Australian exporters, particularly at a time when many of them are doing it tough as a result of the fallout from the COVID-19 crisis across the globe. And Indonesia presents significant opportunity. But the drought is still with us, and many of our communities are still struggling with the reconstruction post-bushfires. And we, as a political party, stand with them. We've got the Drought Resilience Funding Plan to build resilience and preparedness, and also find ways to boost farm production and profits. We're getting on with building dams, creating regional jobs, more water capacity and security. And our communities do face a major rebuild following the summer bushfires. And in my home state of Victoria, the economic impact of agriculture, tourism and forestry industries of the bushfires was $237 million. And this is repeated across other states. That's why our government has provided $448 million for regional bushfire and recovery development program to deliver extra funding and expertise to revive local economies. And when restrictions on movement and travel are eased under our government's three-step plan, these communities will welcome back with open arms visitors. Treasury estimates that with the restrictions lifted under the three separate stages, 850,000 Australians will be back at work. The lifting of restrictions will see Australians move around more freely. Of the $9.4 billion increase in demand, including in retail, will contribute $2.9 billion. So I urge my city-based senators, we all do, in the National Party, to encourage your constituents to visit the regions when those restrictions are lifted. Spend $1 or $2, eat, stay, do your bit to get Australia's economy back on track. We're entering a new era of economic potential. Australians are embracing domestic manufacturing opportunities, and another thing that I know my Senate colleague, Senator Canavan, is incredibly passionate about seeing developed. The Nationals are backing small and medium-sized Australian businesses to tap into new markets around the world, supporting 10 export hubs across the nation, many of them out in the regions. Over 450,000 small and medium-sized businesses have now received over $8 billion under our Cash Flow Booster program. Linked to the size of the payroll, this program will provide between $20,000 and $100,000 to small and medium enterprises to help them retain key staff and meet their fixed costs. We also introduced a separate 50-cent wage subsidy for 117,000 apprentices to see young people with a career path, helping the local apprentice baker, hairdresser in work. The focus is on industries where Australia has large growth potential, and we're incredibly excited about the potential for manufacturing in mining and obviously in food, fibre and agribusiness. Our resources sector is ready to lead our economic recovery. This sector drives our local economies, employing over 255,000 Australians and accounting for 8% of our GDP. And even now, during this 1-in-100-year pandemic, the sector is powering Australia forward, with resources and energy exports increasing by 2% to $68.9 billion during this 2020 March quarter. Our world-leading iron ore exporters are surging ahead and are forecast to export over $101 billion worth of iron ore to our trading partners in Asia. That is great news for the regions, and it is great news for our national economy and great news for local jobs. Latest export figures have confirmed the resilience of some of Australia's key resource exports as the COVID-19 pandemic grips the world. It increased nearly 34% in the March compared with the previous month. And this year, our resource energy export are set to hit $300 billion for the first time, and that is up 40% from 5 years ago. So it really shows what you can do when you have a federal government focused on growing and promoting the mining and resource and energy sector, and what a ballast that is to our economy through these very, very difficult times. The next 3 months will bring some challenges, but it's clear that resources and energy exports will be a key driver of our recovery, and I want to thank the industry and its workers who've kept the sector operating during this crisis, and look forward to working with them as part of the Nationals team as we emerge from this global pandemic. And I know many of the workers have had to make tough decisions for their families to not return home, in oftentimes indefinitely, not knowing when they'll actually be able to leave their mining employment and head home during their breaks due to state boundary closures. So thank you for their efforts there. Rural and regional Australians have answered the call during the COVID-19 pandemic by embracing social distancing, doing things differently. We hope that our lifestyle and density proves popular for those who live in capital cities to come and join us out in the regions where your neighbours aren't so close and you have a great lifestyle and a great local job as well. And that is a vision that we as the National Party want to pursue in government. Rural and regional Australians are ready, willing and able to lead our economic recovery. Thank their diligence, the recovery will need to focus on building Australia's sovereign capacity. If this has taught us anything, it's taught us that we need to be able to do things here in Australia and not rely on sometimes weak, volatile global supply chains. So I'm looking forward to seeing through this recovery phase a vibrant, advanced manufacturing sector, really value-adding to our food and fibre industry and our mining industry, building regional jobs for our local communities. Thank you.